My name is BJ Council. I view the world through the lens of having been followed by a white clerk as a child while shopping in a five and dime. I'm a retired police executive and own UN50, which gives guidance on surviving interactions with police.
I'm Harmony Chavis, and I view the world through the lens of one of the most misunderstood and diverse generations in our nation's history. I'm a social worker and a believer of radical kindness and love as modalities of healing.
My name is Andrew Council. I view the world through the lens of a generational camera phone. I wake up as a black male and go to bed as a black male. I am surviving this never-ending court case we commonly call life in the best way I know how.
All right, welcome back to UN50. Hope you guys have been doing well. We're still in Black History Month. Hope you're having a really good, happy, joyful Black History Month. We've got some guests with us, some community engagement activist folks. They got a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to introduce you to them in just a few minutes, but I was reading through their stuff, and by the time I got through reading the first two lines, sister was tired. I was like, how do they keep up with all that? I was like, I had to stop reading. I was tired. So Harmony, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there today. No, it was not today. This is how off I am as far as my schoolwork goes. But I started my last semester of grad school last Monday. I decided to log into Blackboard today. But we're making it. We're trucking through. I'll be done in May, so I'm super excited.
Wow, congratulations. That means I'll know, so I'll know somebody with half a brain now. Right?
Maybe even 1/4. I mean,
maybe the two of us can make a full brain, right?
Wow.
Oh, cool. So good. I'm so excited to have these two individuals with me. I just met. I think what's interesting, before I even start that, I actually met Shemeka Ebony. She and I met. I think it's just kind of interesting that we've been in this moment, and we're still meeting each other and networking. Because I've not met her in the flesh. I've actually met her, got connected with her virtually, which I think is just interesting, and how we're still able to do that in this space, that we're still networking and making connections. And I hope people kind of, even though, I'm a boomer, but I also recognize the fact that we still got to make connections, whether it's virtually, the way that we're used to doing as a boomer, is who you know, how you know them, but you usually are in that space with them. And I don't know, I just wanted to say that it's just, for me as a boomer, it's just different to be networking virtually and meeting folks. I'm really pleased that I've got to meet you. So this is Mosaic and Ms. Shemeka Ebony, who I met through Boss Locks, Walter Gaynor. And so what I want to do is just talk a little about Shemeka. Met her. She is an activist for community, women's, and children's rights, the founder of Black Girl Magic Market, co-founder of I Am Brilliant with her husband. And you have to explain this to Shemeka, PLE leaders. I think that's also something. And I don't know what the PLE, I wasn't able to figure that out or find it, or it was too lazy.
Which she didn't know what HMU meant either, so you should not be shocked.
And it's people with lived experience.
Oh, okay. PLE leaders and the Crown campaign. So, Shemeka, I'm gonna let you talk about, then I'll introduce your husband. So kind of go into a little bit more details about what you do, why you do, and I am, I think about I Am Brilliant. So let's talk a little bit about who you are first.
Absolutely. I am so excited to be able to hold space with several of these entities, developing leadership, developing entrepreneurship, developing civic engagement under several different, what would seem to be siloed entities or systems. We've been able to create a platform that serves as a think tank for thought leaders. And through this, we're able to advocate for things like policy change to really protect people that are facing inequities, as well as give voice and power to people with lived experience through work through the PLE Institute. what I do with the Crown campaign is a passion project because I have faced hair discrimination, a violation of someone coming to touch my hair, unwanted behavior in that capacity. And so that is an advocacy of my heart, pushing for the Crown Act, more specifically in North Carolina, but that is a national convening of grassroots leaders from across the country. Black Girl Magic Market is another passion of mine. It is really centered around Black women economic equity. And we're doing that through creating spaces for Black women, entrepreneurs, manufacturers of goods and services, and business owners to amplify their goods to an open market. My mantra in this community is that money is green, and so we don't discriminate on how you spend, but we know that when you spend it, it is going to lift up centering Black women. And so with that platform, we pivoted in the pandemic to offer that online engagement to help vendors still get not only in front of their clients, but get in front of other new virtual clients by promoting virtual engagement and having sales and distribution happening online through these same social media platforms that we've been stuck having to communicate with in our normal.
Right. Exactly.
I think I've sprinkled a little bit of all of them that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I was like, wow, y'all doing a lot. Okay, Mr. Husband, Mr. Michael Stewart, Isaac, Mosaic. Did I do it right that time, Harmony? Gee whiz.
You ain't never did it wrong, BJ. I'm gonna say that right now.
You're co-founder of I Am Brilliant and Board Nation USA and CEO of Mosaic. So kind of let us hear a little bit about everything you do along with your better half.
Well, as you hear, Shemeka is pretty busy. So
yes.
First and foremost, I take pleasure in supporting her and being able to help her in her endeavors as an entrepreneur. I've been in entrepreneurship for over 20 years. Wow. I started years ago as a youth. I'm originally from New York, but I moved to North Carolina, got involved with a lot of street team promotions. And then from there, kind of started my own businesses, started in the apparel industry, had success early, and then, had my ups and downs and learned so much.
Right.
But years later, kind of running into this beautiful woman and community, we've been able to, take a lot of our love and energy as a family and show that within community and help and support people. So with I Am Brilliant, we're able to really help people illuminate their gifts and talents. I think sometimes when we look at basketball players and those who aspire to those positions, most young people say, I want to be that person, because those people get a thing called validation. And so what we're trying to do with I Am Brilliant is help other people find a new kind of validation within their chosen gifts and talents that just need coaching and other things. I think we look at a world right now with so many life coaches, and we're like, oh, it's too many people, everyone's doing it. No, they're actually needed, just like athletes need coaches. People through life who are trying to go to the next level need people who can direct them based on experience. And I think the more we understand that, especially for us as Black people, especially celebrating Black History Month, from our African roots, my family is African. I take pride in that. My mother's from Sierra Leone. My father's Jamaican. And, in that, I kind of stand on my cultural principles as a father, as a family man, and how I support her. And it's funny because, it seems to be unusual for people, but we want to make these things a new norm. We're supportive. They know how to show up for each other. They all, as a man, I know how to still take care of the kids as well as still handle my business. So, we have a great relationship, and we call our family a bunch. So we're excited. We keep our kids involved. We travel a lot. So we're fortunate that we're able to take the children with us. When I say children, we have 6.
Whoa,
his, hers,
6?
and ours. Well, hers, mine, and ours. Yeah,
that's still a lot. 6 of anything is a lot, but 6 children. What is the age range?
Oldest is 16. The next one is 15, soon to be 16. That's my daughter. So we literally like the Brady Bunch. Is what we call ourselves, the Brilliant Bunch. We have 2 10th graders. I have a daughter. I have 2 daughters that I came in with. She had 2 boys, and now we have together.
Nice.
16, 15, 2 14s, 3-year-old, and a soon to be 8-month-old.
Bless y'all's hearts.
Wow.
I was a terrorist in 10th grade. Also as a 16-year-old. So I can't imagine having 2 in the 10th grade and then 2 16-year-olds. Like I was literally out of my mind. I feel like when you turn 13, I lost my mind at 13 and probably didn't get it back until I was around 17. So I can't imagine having like several children at the same time. Like, God bless y'all.
They're good compared to us. Like, God gave us a break.
I gave you a break.
And like, just like this being Black History Month, we're fortunate we raise our children in community, you know. And you were like this, BJ. We raised them to not only know community, they knew their fellow officers. Like we made sure we introduced our children to so many life experiences, museums, and everywhere we travel, we make sure we make it a family trip. We always we'll have an engagement, but we'll like do some kind of a museum or a park, something to make sure that they're aware, because we're intentional in building leaders that are going to be productive to really bring the result we want to see happen in the land at large. So that's what we do with I Am Brilliant as an organization, but we work like a family business, you know. So that part's
Well, I know some people are going to be listening to our podcast and they probably won't watch this on YouTube, but
thank God.
I mean, you know, you forgot we were going to be on video, didn't you?
No, actually I did brush my hair. It was in a bun all day today. And I was like, I've got to do something.
Whatever. But no, what I was going to say, I don't know whether you noticed, you guys, your smiles are almost identical. The way that you guys are smiling.
And then the way they look at each other at the same time.
Like, oh my God, it's so horrible.
He's
awesome. God.
Yeah, I hear you.
Brought this together, you know.
One thing I want to kind of talk, I mean, you kind of hit on a little bit, but when Shemeka and I talked about the I Am Brilliant, and, you know, basically just kind of helping people find out what they're supposed to be doing, you know, identifying their gifts. Can you kind of talk about that a little more? Because I really believe in that. I mean, I think that's significant. You know, everybody has something to offer. So tell me how that came about and how you cultivate that when you do what you do.
Okay.
I'll let you start.
Well, I'll be happy to start that. For me, breaking down the words of I Am Brilliant was so important to understand the context, because so often we've been taught that brilliance is an anomaly. Like it is that elite thing that people put upon someone as if it's not replicable. So the real meaning of brilliant is illuminous. And so I'm a firm believer that if you can illuminate, you can connect to what you're passionate about, what you believe in, what do people come to you for? Because we've seen a variety of people that were just challenged at saying, I am brilliant. And so we didn't allow that to stop. We wanted to dig deep with them so that it can pierce and stay. Because once that light bulb comes on and you really catching that, it doesn't go away. The thought doesn't go away. It is like turning on the lights. Right. So we've been assigned to turn on the lights and then showing ways to plug that into your community for sustainable changes that we want to see. And now change isn't enough. We need transformation. And I Am Brilliant is the theory to practice of that to sustainable transformation.
Yeah, I see this right here. I'm ready to be the first gentleman right here, you know.
I hear you. I tell you, that's, wow.
I would just add, you know, just thinking about the journey we had. And I think just even listening to you and I like to study people that I talk with, and you definitely have a phenomenal life and career. And that's kind of what we've been able to highlight, is that we've been able to find this bridge between generations, that when we look at traditional education or academia, we put ourselves through these kind of parallel journeys that we have to do, and, you know, some tenures and all these different, you know, buzzwords that we go after. And sometimes we don't realize that in the real core of our truth, especially our spirituality, we're all born with inherently what we already are supposed to do and be, and what our name means, and all these different things. And so we've created this workshop kind of process that's helped people to truly really work on those things, because we're human. We don't this is not about us, right? We've gone through our own process. Like I always tell Shemeka, saying I am brilliant is a different kind of coming out, right? Because people are scared to say that they're special or what they're passionate about, or it's like they're scared. People are holding it back, and we give people a safe space to really be able to express that and not have to compare themselves to society's standards of where brilliance lies, and then show them how, truly with technology. I'm a technologist, so, I think about it, how technology has given anyone with any talent or gift, or at least any sense of humor, or even with the second career, an opportunity to build and take their brilliance and show the world, and that's the thing. We help people to find that spark and how they can hone that in. And it took a long career to do that,
Wow. Harmon, you got anything? Because I'm getting ready to go. I'm getting ready to start. I'm getting ready to start asking them some stuff.
No, go ahead. I'm all about community. I say all the time that we are all responsible for one another. So I'm always so happy and joyful to hear that there are specifically Black families in this space that are serving as just these beautiful representations of what love looks like and what we deserve to have in life. So I think that that's absolutely beautiful. So I'm gonna let you do your thing, BJ. I'm here to listen and observe.
No, that's a lot, because you're gonna have to say something. I know you too well. So I think we're gonna get to the part, just Shemeka and I how we started connecting was the work that she's doing with Christine in Asheville public safety. But as I'm looking at your stuff, the part from community engagement, getting people involved, what does that look like? The capacity building and those types of things. So what I'd like to hear from you guys is, and I'm looking at this through the lens of law enforcement, okay? And as a Black police officer, right? So one of the things that we're trying to do with UN50 is to show that we are allies, like Black officers are allies, because we're in our community, we see our community, and we are our community. But we also see families and single mothers and that are getting it done every day. They're doing his work. They're doing what they need to do, and they want better. And it's like, what am I looking for? How do you get individuals like that who are all they can do is go to work, right? But they want to be involved in making a difference in their space, but they're just running and doing. So the thing is, how do you figure out how to help our community who usually isn't in the room, and they're not going to the budget meeting, but they deserve better, but their voice isn't in the room. So how do you get that individual's voice in the room to help them out? Because they cannot be there. So what does that look like as community engagement for that, or those individuals who are doing, they're doing the do, working as hard as they can, but I can't go to no meeting. I can't, I can't do that, but I know I need to, but I can't. So what does that look like for you guys?
BJ, you bring up a really important part that I find time and time again when I hear from people. They want to get involved but can't find the time, right? So depending on how we are engaging, if we have enough space to look at ways to come to where they are. So having like kitchen table conversations, like meeting them how they convene already, and fitting yourselves in what it already exists. And it takes away the pressure of feeling like, because change and something new moves at the speed of trust.
I like that. That's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt.
That is a t-shirt. I was on mute, couldn't get to it fast enough.
That's beautiful.
So I think that's a good start with how to begin the engagement journey. I always lift up, we have assessments and frameworks to help support what engaging people with lived experience facing inequities look like, because that's who you just described. They are not only not able to have enough time to go to these city council meetings or county commissioner meetings, but they're also unable to know how many different steps have to be taken to give input on budget. because that community informing is often what's happening in community from a governmental standpoint or a organizational standpoint. If I put up a flyer, then I've engaged, you know, and that's something that has to be broken down, because that's not engagement, that's informing. There's an exchange of values and setting the stage that everyone's voice is valued. That's kind of what I Am Brilliant sets the stage for. You're not allowed to come in with your titles. You're not allowed to come in with your guards or protections. Doesn't matter how long you've gone to school. We want you to come in your humanness. We recenter humanness because we're missing the fact that we need to be human above everything else. If that's the one thing we have in common, if we're at odds against everything else, if you are just so against connecting, then at least let's find common ground on that we're breathing human beings that have needs.
She got my heart. Yeah. But I mean,
yeah.
But I agree. And I think to your question, I think, you know, my background in life beyond my cultural background, you know, I kind of have a different eagle's eye view looking at the situation culturally sometimes. First generation here. I have a brother-in-law who was just recently retired after over 30 years plus in the NYPD. I grew up around those guys, and my father was a corrections officer. So it's like, mentality-wise, when I grew up, I was a bullied, tough kid, right? But I was the bully who bullied the bullies, you know, kind of grew up in Brooklyn originally. And then when I came to North Carolina, I kind of created a unique balance. And I think relationship has always been key to it. I think especially intergenerational relationships. And when it comes to young people, I think, like Shemeka brought up a good point, trust. I think establishing trust, we hear too many horror stories on how violation of trust have happened in our communities, whether it's a law enforcement, whether it's a family member, in so many ways. And so what we're trying to do is get people to take the brilliant light that's still in there and help them repurpose it, because sometimes the traditional way we educate ourselves and inform ourselves can lie to us. And it doesn't necessarily feed who we truly are in character development. And so what we try to do at I Am Brilliant is try to help bring that greater character to the surface. So like Shemeka said, though I'm showing up as the human, here's my coat of arms, here's what I stand for. And I think sometimes people have a misrepresentation of a narrative. I call it the stereotyping, right? So we want to throw out buzzwords, and the biggest one of all that scares everyone's racist, right? You say racist in it. I'm not. You know, I am that kind of line, but I call it stereotyping. And I say it's kind of, if you think about it, like you watch on those television movies and people got their eyes bugged out and they're being watched something over and over again. And I call it the three-headed Hydra, which is the news stations that are there. And what they do is they're kind of driving people to a narrative based on information that makes the brain feel like it's been informed and like, you know, but you're really being directed. And what we're going to do with I Am Brilliant is hopefully open up everybody's real clarity within their own mind, but connected with their emotional intelligence. Because a lot of times, even when you come to city council meetings, and this is what we do in terms of like, we're immersed in business rooms, board rooms, community rooms, city council, and you see the same trends. And one of the things you always see is either people's fear to come to a podium and say what needs to be said, not feeling that they fit in. And Shemeka said it always, if this is truly a democracy, then how are we not going to meet people where they're at?
That's right.
Everyone's participation. And as far as what you're doing with UN50, like I said, there's a great ground here, but trust does have to be reestablished. I think it's a unique kind of conversation because we all have law enforcement that may be family members, and then we're dealing with communities that have been kind of brutalized and I grew up in a rough area, so I understand the extremes of what poverty looks like. And then at the same time, to mature in what this country offers, I think we have to create that openness to the brilliance that's always in the room, whether it's a child, someone who's a boomer, or how we kind of bring it on. That's what we're trying to bring, that intersectionality to really help us all grow to that next level of society that we are inheriting. We're inheriting it. You know, I would say the New World Order is either going to be written with all of us involved, feeling like we're capable, or someone else is going to write it for us, you know? And that's what we're trying to let people know. The New World Order is being written. It's just now your time to wake up and realize that you're brilliant enough to walk into who you are, regardless of where you're at in life right now. And if you don't know how to do it, we'll help you shift to what that looks like.
Wow. I love it. That just makes, I think what hit me was when you said, Shamika, is that we go where they are. You know, whatever that space is, because, you know, from my perspective, I know people, when they want to do community stuff, is like, you got to come here. you know, you got to come to City Hall, or you got to go whatever.
Come to this center.
Come to this center, you know, but, you know, we gotta figure out how to go where our folks are to give them this opportunity. And then the other thing, and I guess you guys would also have some say about this as well, the other piece of this is that we have, you know, folks coming in, and then I think, Shamika, you said this when we were talking the other day, they coming in and they do what they do and then they out. You know, and it's like, well, where did y'all go? And or either they run in and take care of something, a crisis that may have happened in that community, and they do a little warm and fuzzy for, you know, a couple of weeks, and then they out. And what do you do with that? You're not making, you know, so how do you, and I guess I'm just trying to figure out, how do you guys work with, how do you do what you do based on this tradition of, okay, this community, this Black community is experiencing this crisis. Let's run in and do this for a couple of weeks and then we're out. You know, how what's the voice? Do you guys have a voice to go, okay, slow your roll, y'all. Yeah, they had a crisis, but y'all need to sit here. You know, don't go nowhere. You know, slow your roll. You know. So, you know, what does that look like for you guys? Because that's the way things are happening. I mean, I know that that's just the way stuff works.
Yeah. Right. It's within limitations, because usually a timeline is tied to a present outcome or result, as well as a budget cycle, you know. So what I see in those opportunities is helping the readiness on both sides. One of my minimum expectations when working with organizations and community is that I'm not there to fix the community. Right. I am there to partner and align and give them an open door to amplify what they've probably been saying the whole time, but have been blacklisted or ignored because of their experiences of feeling unheard and how they are showing up when they do, you know. And so it's kind of breaking down those walls and opening doors and taking it off the hinges, so that when I leave, it's not that you felt that I was there and I need to come back for you to keep staying on this journey. But while I'm there, I'm going to create and we're going to co-design a sustainability plan that has those that are most impacted with these inequities, most experienced of those harms. They're going to be there co-designing as well. And so the capacity building goes on both ways, because we don't want to train and support and lift up community leaders or influencers and then put them into the hands of an organization that wasn't ready. Right. And that readiness shows up when there's harm caused, or there's no safe space, or there's a lot of jargon, or there's a seat at the table, but your voice is muted. Right. You know, there's no power, you know. So I deal with readiness on both sides, so that there's internal readiness to receive that partnership and co-design, and then external readiness to deal with the jargon, expose some new language of this culture and how you move. You know, ultimately we need policy change, whatever that looks like, how that is amplified. And those that are not at the table of those changes that are happening are the ones on the receiving end, because someone's looking into their situation, identifying what they need based on what they have, and not necessarily prioritizing what they're saying would be important. So I see different versions of that across community, but the best opportunities I've seen for good sustainable outcomes that are those that are willing to be at the table for a while, because it's not an overnight thing. It's not a checkbox. You can't invite me and want a checkbox experience.
Right.
So you ain't having that.
Right.
Yeah, I know, right?
No, but for sure, I mean, I think, you know, the experiences have been lively in terms of how we engage.
Mm-hmm.
I think our unique approach as a team, both me and Shemeka with our unique experience, we understand the value of going to leaders that are at City Hall just as much as it is to go talk to the nightclub owner.
Yes.
Really get a beat on what it is, who's who,
Yes.
why they're who they are, understand who their big mama was.
Yes.
Really
and
see, if you really get down to the textures of African Americans, there is commonality. There's a lot of patterns of commonality that come from our origin and our roots. But the problem is we always keep wanting to act like there was like slavery was a it, and it was never an it. We were always fighting out of it. We were just in bondage, fighting out of it. We were never content with it. It was never a thing that was a content moment. And I think now we have to understand that regardless of the times, we have to, I am brilliant, more importantly for me, it's not that it's just an African-American thing, though, it's an awakening thing. And it's an awakening thing because we're locked into a system, but the rules were already written. The system's not broken. It's working the way it was designed to work.
Right. That's right.
And we have to call that out. And this is one of the few times, especially when we see how the three-headed hydra and all the other voices that are out there have created such a, as they call it, insurrection towards what people were angered towards. We have to get to a greater sense that we have to realize that our current systems, though we want to protect them and covet them, just like someone's pipeline or something like that, it's corroding the seawater. And we have to realize that these old things are poisoning because it's nostalgia. Even now, how people are so uncomfortable. My kids in virtual school, oh my God, because the system that we protect from our jobs and how we're forced to work and how we're underpaid and all this stuff is the same thing that caused the problems and the ills. And just like Shemeka, now that we're aware of that, before I can say, okay, we weren't always allowed necessarily to walk into the rooms and the libraries and the law schools to know this. I'm fortunate to utilize platforms to talk to some of the greatest law minds and thinkers that are in this country. And I love technology, as I stated earlier. So we keep a wide range of how these things are converging right now for our good, right? But we have to, the one thing I would say, BJ, is with I Am Brilliant, the goal, when Shemeka first really crafted it, because she's the true initial architect, because it kind of even brought me to life. What I realized is that it made you assume the positive affirmation immediately. I didn't have to wait till after I completed a test or till I'm degreed up or till I get the higher level position, C-suite. It affirmed that me right now, regardless of what community we took this to, from New Orleans to New York City, to the Today Show, to the LA, to Skid Row. You understand? Right. We've been able to find a common thread that these people have felt an awakening of possibility just because we created a positive affirmation that we didn't tell them they had to go through a long line to achieve. Wow. You are already brilliant now.
Yes.
What are we going to do with it?
Right.
And it changes the conversation. It changes the readiness level. And it gets people to a place where we can do, right? It's a can-do spirit that becomes possible. No longer negative thoughts, no longer divisions of partisanship. Just, we can do this. And that's what we've been pushing, and we've been fortunate to take to a lot of political leaders and other people as we're leading this charge of this movement, because people need this feeling. They need that validation right away from their pure existence that it was purposeful for this democracy to be what it's supposed to be on this Black History Month and beyond, right?
Can I say, can I do the City Girls, period? Like,
yeah, you can.
I was muted before so you couldn't hear me, but I was like, period. And I was doing my hand and everything, like out of the way, but I felt it. I felt it.
I love it.
Oh man. Yeah, that's wow, that's just huge. And I know, again, because I look, this whole thing that we're trying to create this series called We Are Allies. I mean, I think people forget that as Black officers, correction officers and stuff like that. Not that my white colleagues and white peers don't see this, but as a Black law enforcement, I see our community, right? And I see the pain, I see the trauma, but I also see the beauty, that's in the community, and it's trying to recognize that. How do you, move that forward? Because it's there. And figure out how to tap that. but it's difficult to tap that when there's so much other systems that are oppressing that on top of that. So it's kind of, hard to see the brilliance and the beauty, or for them to even see it in themselves, because they're just, as they say, I'm tired of being tired. And that begins to have an impact on wanting to show their brilliance. And so for me, it's like, okay, how do we do that? And you guys are doing that. And I think that is so awesome that I love it. I mean, I'm glad that the universe saw fit to have us through, Walter and Christine. And so I'm really excited about that. So I kind of want to go ahead and talk a little bit about this Asheville piece.
Okay.
Do you guys live in Asheville? Is that where you're based?
No, we're based in the Triangle.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Okay. What shows she doesn't read the notes that I sent her prior to the event. But I love her anyway.
It's a miracle that I can even find the Zoom link login. Every week, I'm like, where is this login? Am I going to be on time? And by the skin of my teeth, I make it. So you're not wrong. I did not read the description.
Oh, no problem. We encourage all people to Google us, please.
Yeah, we'll make sure you have all get connected. Oh, my God, I got to love her. She's a millennial. But anyway, so just this Asheville piece about you guys went in and had this conversation. I think it's just really interesting about how to bring them to the table. We talked about what is it, what was that about? I mean, kind of give us a little bit of what you guys did, how you connected with the community. And I think Shemek and I were talking about, that language and, it's all about trying to figure out how to get this law enforcement, reimagining law enforcement, and hearing what reimagining looks like for the Black community. Their voices need to be at the table. So tell us, just kind of give us a little bit of detail about that. I might go in a little bit more about this, the conversation, but tell us about the Asheville public safety journey.
Yeah, so to give some back history, before we began the engagement journey with my firm in the fall, they had begun earlier in the year looking at ways to address the upcoming budget changes. During the same time, there was a lot of things going on in community with unrest between law enforcement and March protesters that were being harassed and harmed, or items being destroyed. So there was some community tension around that. And so there was a group out of Asheville, Black Asheville Demands, that were put together and released. And the city manager and the team paid attention to those demands, and they began looking at what they could do most immediately to create change. One of the things that we had to begin with was, I think there was a demand to defund the police by a certain percentage, a very large percentage. And that was something that the city manager could not commit to do, but she did commit to reallocation and redistribution of funds based on their proposals that they made within the budget. Asheville has also been identified based on a city council proclamation that they're having a lot of work done around Juneteenth and reparations for Black citizens. And so having Black citizens, other people of color, other minorities experiencing inequities, having them at the table during the reimagining public safety process was them pretty much asking, what is important to you? We asked questions like, what should the police department be doing and what should be reallocated or reassigned? Because there was a lot of interest in community partner organizations being amplified to provide some of the services that the police were showing up for. And then the other component of that was who's missing from the table still. And so hearing that, hearing who's still not being reached, and because we were doing this in the pandemic, majority of our engagement was virtual. For me, my firm focused on finding the influencers and community leaders in the community that had already been trying to engage, already maybe leading groups. I connected with them online in virtual spaces, reached out to the organizations. What needs do you have? Because again, for me, it was a priority to make sure that while the city while we have the city's attention, let's amplify what needs to change more sustainably outside of what I've been brought in to engage. For me, coming in, I want it to be a sustainability project, not that you can't wait for me to come back, but you got to, because you found yourself in it and this is your thing now, you know, that's that illuminating part. So a lot of the work that we're doing around capacity building is internal with department leaders, as well as external, reaching out to those influencers and bringing forth this opportunity to have a community engagement academy that will amplify when these meetings are happening virtually. Even if you can't come to that meeting, now you can actually look online and review it, you know, and become aware. So there's ways that we can do to work around anyone's schedule when it comes to the I can'ts. Like, I have an abundance mindset. I do this work from an abundance mindset. I don't take on the identities of anyone else's oppression or what they assume I should not have capacity to do, because obviously, as you can see, I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me.
Oh, yes. Yes.
No limit.
I hear you.
And definitely, and it's always a balance. I think that's a support system that being a couple allows for us to have, that things for us and decision making has to be immediate for us to make all this come together with children who are virtual at different age groups, and you know, even supporting a project like this. We're excited, and we definitely love the team that has been able to come together around this.
Amazing team.
And just seeing what Shemeka was talking about, sustainability. I think a lot of our principles come from the new world, the new market of technology, and we're a new hybrid, right? Over the years, me and Shemeka studied a concept called B corporations, which were like benefit corporations. And though we're not structured like that today, the mindset was structured for us that we wanted to make sure that though we want to earn our worth, we also make sure that we're leaving something that is of great value that will change the land, as I spoke before. I think I can't stress that. And I think our backgrounds in the unique way of how we were forged together by God, to say that we are able to say, I am brilliant, but you are too. I am, but you are too. And that mantra is there to help people to realize, like, am I really standing in my way? I think that's the key. I think sometimes we stand in our own way. You know, everyone should have the feeling of writing an executive order every day of their life. Not waiting for one person to do that, but they are brilliant enough that you can have an executive order every day in your household, within your family, for yourself. And that in itself can change the community around you. And I think that's the lasting effect, right? Is that the way our language penetrates, right? We know we have to go in there as translators. So we understand what the practices have shown you to do. But remember, it was just the practice. Now we're coming in here with a game plan. And with that, we're making sure that we're showing how people's voices come together in this beautiful puzzle called fairness and called resource sharing. And we have to acknowledge the historical truths, but we don't have to always make them so present that they're the continuing replay tape of reality. We have to change that. So we have to both educate and inform of past deeds and then undo, but we have to continue to understand the winners and the leaders and the politicians and the different people who are changing literally in front of our eyes, that are going to put the policies in place. I mean, you were an example of that, BJ. Like, I mean, you are brilliant. You're
brilliant.
You're impossible. You're impossible is a perfect, if you listen to what everyone would have told you couldn't do, you would not even be here today as you're going into your next blessing, building this series for yourself. Because the vision of what you're doing right now is to unite people. And I think with my nickname, as I told you, Mosaic, that was always my goal, was about unity. Until we understand unity, we don't have community. Until we don't understand communication, we don't have a community. And those are the key components: communication, unity, community. And we have to communicate with different people. And that's the light that being brilliant brings to you. I always say, like the sun, you know, as we learn from that scientific approach, I always find a way to connect whoever in the audience needs a different way of seeing what brilliance could look like. But there's a gravity that starts to pick up around something that holds the abundance of brilliance that a sun holds, the light. And when you light, people come around you that are meant to be around your orbit. And I think too many times we're always trying to get everyone to agree. No, let's get the ones who do agree and work really, really diligent for those who, you know, need it.
I love that.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate it, because, I think, and you're right. I mean, I think we do, well, I know I do. I stand and get in my own way. I mean, because sometimes it's just difficult, and I have to go, you know what, I got to do what I got to do. You know, I got to do with the universe and what my charge is. And, you know, look, you know, and I have folks around me, Harmony, I give her a hard time, but she, you know, makes sure that I do, you know, I got to do what I do.
You hear her name, right?
I know,
another
right?
I Am Brilliant principle we'll talk about another time.
My mom says that she probably shouldn't have done that. She was, and I was like, too late. It's my name now. Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I think what I like, I mean, you guys, everything, I agree with everything that you said, but what for me is just what you guys are doing is, and Shemeka and I, again, we talked about this offline before we did this. I don't really have the capability. You guys are the experts on this community engagement piece, right? I mean, you know how to get people, you're teaching them the language, you're teaching them how to use their gifts and their brilliance and not pay attention to what was, but what can be different, how they can be a part of making something change and not, you know, get caught up in the past and then changing that, because it's ever evolving. We're moving forward. You guys are helping them see that and how to be a part of that. And I think for me, that's just huge, especially for in a couple of communities that I'm working in. They're small communities, right? And they have individuals who are getting the work done and trying to figure out how. I'm sitting there going, sometimes, I don't know whether I mentioned this, it's like, say this, you know, ask this, you know, to the powers to be, so you can get what I feel like you need. But what you're saying, if I'm hearing you correctly, you do that. You know, you sit down with those influencers and you find them, and then you help them do what they're already doing it. You just kind of help them take that to the next level. And I'm kind of, for me, it's language, Shemeka. And, you know, you and I were talking about, there's a language, it's a Popo language. I mean, there's just a Popo language. And so trying to figure out how to help folks speak Popo so they can get what they want, that reimagine what that looks like. Defunding police. I don't cringe from that at all. I think if you want to defund, but what does that look like? And we talked about, you know, the budget. That is not a pretty thing. I mean, it's boring, you know, I mean, it's just a boring thing, but you got to be there. Yeah. So you find what I'm hearing you say, you find the influencers in those communities and help them navigate that. Am I kind of capsulizing that, or am I being too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. There could be people that are already convening that need what you're saying. Like, what comes to mind to me are PACs in communities. So I know Raleigh has a PAC, Fayetteville has a PAC. I've worked with those leaders and some work with North Carolina Black Women's Roundtable, and they're not necessarily willing to create kumbaya space for law enforcement.
Yeah.
But I think some first steps in even just beginning that trust building are to have opportunities to support what they may already have. There may be some language that they are trying to present as proposals, or maybe even needing to know that you can make this recommendation for a policy change or these add-ons, creating something that they can know what's possible, and then they'll know what to ask for, and they'll know how to be strategic in looking at how to continue to engage your organization for the long term. You know, building those bridges is like a two-part thing, right? So even with Asheville, for example, we had a separate law enforcement meeting that was closed. No residents or were a part of that.
Right.
But we wanted to give them space as citizens to share their input and feedback. What are they tired of doing? What needs to stop? Where can they get some help? How are they being supported? What mental health resources are available? What do you need from city council? So we created a separate space, and that was facilitated by Glenn Thomas. And that was really an opportunity to begin healing space for them, right? You know, separate from, you know, the unheard people that may very well attack. And then also in those spaces, building on the sense of trust, I'd ask and lean back into UN50. How can your organization create those safe spaces like that for the law enforcement that are allies, so that they can have a space to exhale, breathe, talk about their frustrations that shouldn't necessarily be privy to external, you know, because they need safe space too, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. And I appreciate that, because that's another piece we're starting to work on too. I mean, because there's a lot going on along. I've been out of law enforcement since 2010, and I just can't imagine being in law enforcement during this moment, you know, and I'm talking to some of the folks in these communities and some law enforcement, they can't even, hiring is just, they can't find anybody who wants to be the popo, simply because it's just too much. It's just too much.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. I mean, especially if you got somebody that really wants to do the work the way we believe it should be done, but then all this external stuff that's going on. I mean, as soon as they walk in and put a uniform, they're viewed as the enemy by the community. Who wants that? You know, but their heart's in the right place. And it's like, so anyway, so I appreciate you saying that, because there needs to be a space for officers to exhale. Because it's with everything else we got to look at, and then on top of that, we're viewed as enemies. And you know,
even when looking at being an ally, if you don't have your space to heal, there'll be toxicity that'll come out of you unintentionally. Even in wanting to build that trust, because you haven't. I call it leading while bleeding. So that takes a lot of art and concentration to give someone detailed instructions on how to fix you when you're bleeding. So on the community side, there has to be some space for healing. There has to be some conversations to be heard. And the readiness of those officers in that room at that time is just as important and valued as the readiness of the people to cause no harm. You know, it's like if you could have an object that can absorb all of the energy in the room from both sides and then throw that out, and then everybody can get that, we can rush to get to that. But because oftentimes communities aren't investing in the time it takes to really create sustainable safe spaces and relationship building with that. You know, so that's the truth. People aren't putting money where their mouth is when it comes to what equity work really looks like.
And I think, I mean, you know, I'm gonna let that breathe. You know, I mean, because it's just so amazing to see that the will and the manifestation, meaning that we're in a unique place, and it is, I can only imagine, like you said, what law enforcement have to feel like to go from being seen as the hero, right? And how we depicted it over the years, to seeing the viral adaptation of showing people a bad car crash over and over and over and over again until it becomes even brainwashing. That's what I mentioned earlier. And I think my background, I know you asked us, and our careers are way too extensive to really go through, but I have a extensive media background, and I started in, you know, like I talked about, marketing and, you know, and working with the things that created the first influencers, which were the musicians and those kind of things. I understood that early cycle, and then I was fortunate enough to see how technology played into it, which is even playing on to some of our current dialogue about the Facebooks and the influence these things are having in terms of, you know, kind of rewiring people's thoughts and what we see. And all this is, again, this is about the cross sections. And what we're doing, I Am Brilliant, is what I call the reboot. People need a reboot right now, because the machines that we're holding, even this clarity of video right now, is getting more intelligent than we are on some level. And so the one thing that we can do with I Am Brilliant is make sure that at one moment, I may not win an Oscar, but that one person at one time with that sign told me I was brilliant. And they helped me remember a story about something I did as a child that I remember when my teachers used to, we find so many amazing stories. And if we understand that our stories are weighted in gold, I had the luxury of speaking to a group a few days back, and I was saying to them that if Black Americans, if anything I can give as a gift for Black History Month, is to realize that you came to this country with a value. And when you found this stumbling into this concept that they made up called freedom, understand that value has never been lost from your abilities and your gifts. And so what we're trying to do now as Shemeka, she's the community person. And as we've been working in 2020, as we've had to look at the pandemic and what people really need, I'm entrepreneurship, right? And as I call it entrepreneur. There's another kind of entrepreneur, where you're going to go there, because that's a transforming energy that people need. They need, once I'm told how to be a great leader and I show up to those community things, I still have to make it to work for somebody else. I don't know how to not only make a business, I don't know how to become an employer. And those are the additional shifts. So we do workforce development programs. So we have so much that 2020 allowed us to do our homework even more. Put together some glorious projects and toolkits and workbooks that are going to empower people in 2021. That's what we call the game plan, because we can't focus to make sure that people have the right approach going into this year. And then we don't look at this as a defeated moment in human society, but what we call the greatest opportunity ever to not only see things the way it should have been, but still can be. And that's the way we can move going forward. So law enforcement, what you're doing is a beautiful symbol towards this next movement. I celebrate your 25-year anniversary. I celebrate your 50th, because it keeps going, and you set something in motion to have these conversations with great leaders that are trying to connect with the dualism of the community, where we understand that they're all human from whatever side, and we don't want to point fingers, you're the bad one, but how do we stop the problems and create greater solutions? That's what we're about with our
I think that whole thing about just being human, that just resonates with me. So we just gotta, that's who we are. We gotta meet everybody about, I'm a human being, and I appreciate, again, your kind where I can see why you're a motivator. I was reading about, you change the atmosphere when you walk into the room, is what you said. And so I can see, I love people, in my heart, I can see that.
I want people to feel good about themselves. But we like to make you feel, Shemeka tell you, come to my family, we make you feel like you a queen. You truly have, you have food laid out. It's just the way so to me, I'm grateful to take that spirit and bring it to my people who need it, and bring smiles to people who didn't think they deserved just a simple smile. We're happy, it's a blessing.
And we got a question, because you were just talking about what you guys, 2020 was kind of, that you took advantage of that of 2020, though, how it kept us all in a space, and you were creative. Just to talk about this law enforcement, the thing, talking about that humanness, and one of the things I tell folks is law enforcement, it's up to them to do the heavy lifting. It is not up to the Black community or those communities that don't feel safe there. It's up to it's up to that individual officer. It's not up to the police chief. It's not up to the deputy police chief. It's up to that officer that gets out the car and interacts. That's that he or she has to do the heavy lifting. And from my perspective, what the heavy lifting part is, you have got to be able to demonstrate to this individual that you're interacting with that there is a human being behind this badge.
Yes.
That you have got to be able to. I'm standing in this uniform, but if I interact with you in a way as one human to another, you're going to see my humanness, even though I'm standing in this uniform. That's up to you.
Yes.
And then that's all. When the officers do that, and they can demonstrate, because I know it works, because people, they recognize BJ. Even though I'm in a uniform, they recognize BJ. That's just part of BJ's job. And so when you get to that point and you have those kind of relationships in a community, then I mean, it's a wrap. Yeah. And but those are individual interactions, and remembering that we're all humans and we need to meet people where they are, and they're just human. They're just human. So
may I say one thing?
Yeah, please go right ahead.
I didn't want to miss a great point you made, because you had me there when you described what you would feel like having you come out of the car and, you know, pull me over or something like that. And I say, the thing I realize when I look at life and our society, especially when it comes to these conflicts with law enforcement, it comes down to two words, and that's authority, right? Mm-hmm. And offense. Right. And I'm not talking about offense by terms of the crime you committed, but I see the eruption always come from people feeling that you're not giving them the validation of authority, and then the offense of that, creating the who's more powerful, the individual officer or the citizen who is no longer, you know. And I think what we try to do is we've stripped citizenship from people, from how we bracket people into smaller groupings. We are stripping people slowly of the citizenship. We call them residents. We call them African Americans. We call them all these different things that strip them from what's rightfully theirs, which is their authority within their citizenship. And until we return think about school. We don't teach law in school. If you ask most officers to tell you the law, you know, and you go back with them, some of them are just like shocked when you know the law, because we're not really thinking. So like I said, we can deal with the authority piece to it, and then deal with the not, like, if officers can learn to be trained where they're not looking to be offended, right, then we will have a lot of escalation not go there. Because most times, most people are trying to go home beyond a movie's mindset that made you believe that there's an African American lurking who's going to shoot you if you let your guard down. That's usually a made up illusion. And that's the thing we like to address with our trainings, is those stereotypes, the things that were implanted in your mind that made you believe it was so real, that fear and shame had to creep in before you made a human decision in love, right? And compassion. Right. And so those are the pieces that we look to bring together, is that we can help people really work through those things. That's what we get to serve with what we do.
Wow, man. I love it. This is awesome. I feel the love. I do, man. You guys are just, I mean, it's just really good energy, you know, the universe, the spirit that you guys have, the belief, you know, that, you know what, you know, God has put you guys here to do. You stepped into that, and you walk in that walk. And I hope that's what, you know, I'm doing. Harmony's helping me do, my folks. So thank you very much. So the last question I want to ask, you've kind of already answered it, but I'm going to just go ahead and I think I might have put it out there. So 2020, you guys lived through it, survived it. So who are you individually, surviving or living through 2020? You know, who are you now individually, and who are you collectively?
I'll let her start.
Wow.
You kind of already answered it a little bit, Mosaic. You kind of answered a little bit.
What centers me is, like, I keep giving myself grace that I gave birth to an African-American male in a pandemic. So, you know, statistics said I wasn't even supposed to survive.
Oh, wow.
You know, I was considered a geriatric pregnancy because advanced maternal age, like all these medical things that stacked up my inequity opportunities to have to experience an inequitable healthcare system.
Wow.
And so I made it out, right? So that's my answer. And I'm like, honey, you had a baby in a pandemic. Like, you know, so that's my first.
Right. Can I do what Harmony was on it? Period. Did I do it right?
You got to do it with your neck. Period.
Okay. Period. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry, Shemeka. Go ahead. Sorry.
But to think, when I just give myself a moment with that statement, for me, I honestly feel like 2020 gave me a moment to show up and look back at what I've already done. So 2020 didn't change me, but it is introducing me to many other people, you know? So it's like, let me reintroduce myself if I need to, but I don't need to change, but thank you for finding me. Wow. You know, so that's my truth going into 2021. It's like, I'm going to keep going. No excuses. You know, for me, I have a mantra, don't let excuses get more exercise than I do. Wow. You know, because that happens a lot. And the pandemic is a really good excuse to do nothing, you know, to just quit, to stop, yes, or do some internal work and heal. And so for me, it was like, wow, I have done a lot. Within 5 years, I've been a business owner for 5 years, thanks to this great guy. You know, I was working in community and this wasn't on my radar. Right. But it was like, it just made sense to align with what I'm doing. In 2020, being able to slow down and pause, not travel so much, not going state to state, not going to lobby days and meeting with senators and the House of Representative leaders, and to just pause and say, wow, I'm still looking at videos that I've done of talks and like, I don't even remember it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
cool.
Just to say that, you know, just looking at the library of content, I think that we were able to use the slowdown of 2020 as a means of kind of reframing. We were going to slow down anyway because we were expecting, and then the pandemic hit and we started the year hard. We have a very rigorous schedule because we do so much. So it has to be, you know, kind of, you know, on top of it. But again, we've been able to turn our family into the business. And I think 2021 and what we know we want to stand, after this, the way the world has been with a pandemic still going on, insurrection, and gratefully a democracy that's doing its best to keep its formation, I am ready to fully step into my individual citizenship and fully take my name Mosaic I started a clothing brand with it years ago when I was the age of 14 years old. I didn't know what I was doing, had to learn. But now I'm committed to helping entrepreneurs like Shemeka, whether coming from community or looking at how did I make that transition, or what we say pivot to something new, because my North Star is saying I need to do this, and this current thing that I'm giving time to doesn't give me a value or dividends of experience. So what we're trying to do is enrich people with language. And like I said, continue to be translators and help other people who can sit as conduits of translators between groups, communicate. And even for myself, as the mosaic, I always say I'm God's living mosaic, meaning that I'm a lesson of my broken pieces made into the best, beautiful presentation I can bring together. Though I'm standing here with pieces that were cracked, beat down, the whole nine, and had issues with law enforcement, even with law enforcement within my family, spending, you know, time with law enforcement in many intimate settings over the years, and then community leaders. And not only that, people who need to start realizing we're all responsible. It's not one group or force enforcement is more responsible than the other. We all have to start taking a responsibility in how we show up as citizens, as society, as a community, when we're looking at, because so many people will define their community so limited, and we're trying to help people to bring those pieces together and stop departmentalizing things and realize that everything's affecting everything, not just your department, not just the situation over here, but everything is affecting each other. And if we can get our young people who used to maybe sell a narcotic or all these things that have been criminalized from the 80s and all these different rules that have rolled over, because we're living with so many things that were locked in from the 70s. It's like people stopped wanting to write laws after the 70s and this gridlock after, you know, the Reagan kind of people, like everyone stopped really, everything came in slowly after that. And we have to realize that we have to fix those things. And hopefully the current administration, because of their seasonality, their boomerness within, I don't know if that's a boomer, but we're going to give him a boomer. He's at the further boomer, you know. He definitely, hopefully comes with a wide enough lens and an administrative piece that will start that translation piece that we're missing within the society. Because we're not, you know, when you start reading laws, you're talking about a whole nother Shakespeare. And when you start to dig into the reason why people pass the buck, I think we said earlier, right? People go to meetings once or twice a month to deal with problems that happen anywhere from, well, this month 28 days, and next month 30 days, and then 31 days, follow up.
Yeah.
Like, we show up once or twice to fix problems that happen all the time, 24/7.
Yes.
The thing is, the people have to now get the medicine that they deserve to heal their spirit, to know that there's no more test that needs to be validated. You are the valedictorian of your life. You can step up, and now you have voice to your society. And if you don't know how to do it, we'll show you.
I love it. Oh man, I know. I feel really good after that. I think you said something. I'm gonna say that everybody's kind of responsible. Everybody's responsible for stuff, and so I would assume you're familiar with the saying by Rabbi Abraham Joshua, and basically you probably heard of, a few are guilty, but all are responsible. Yes. So we're all responsible, and I heard that. I was like, that, I love it, because we all are responsible for making things better. So I've enjoyed this, and to my listeners, we're going to have all the information that you can need and want to get in contact, especially those of you who are out there getting some work done and needing some capacity building. I definitely think these two individuals can help you, move that in your community to the next level if you need that. So we'll have all that out there for you, so you can connect with them on whatever platforms and information. So that'll be available for you. So Shemeka and Mosaic, thank you so much for being here with me, and the kind words that you've given me to keep it moving. So I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hopefully a relationship. It's, whatever that looks like. I have no idea what that's going to look like. So whatever the universe says it's supposed to look like, and whatever that manifests itself into, I think Shemeka and I already talked, whatever the steps are supposed to be, whatever that is. So we'll do that. So I know Harmony, she's my little mini me. And the thing she likes best about me is because I buy her food and dinner.
It's always a good time.
Yeah, so I keep. So she's pretty cheap. I keep her fed. So, so Harmony, you got anything you want to say before we close out?
I think that if you know me, or if you've listened to any of these podcasts, you guys are really speaking to my heart. So there's not really a lot for me to say, or a lot to be said. I'm just really glad that there are people out here that are willing to affirm other people's existence as being enough. I think that it's especially important right now at this point in time to know that you are enough. You're always going to be enough, as you are right now. Doesn't have to be tomorrow. It doesn't have to be, when your life is fixed or when you're together. You're enough right now in this moment. So I love that there are people that are out here preaching that and speaking it over folks, because we're not in physical churches anymore, but that doesn't mean that we can't have church, and it doesn't mean that we don't have the power to speak life over one another. So excited and so thankful for the work that you guys are doing, and know that I am sending you guys all my love and light, and I'm so excited to watch this continue to unfold.
Oh man, thank you. And you are brilliant.
Absolutely.
And I am hungry. Oh my goodness. I'm about to go straight to bed after this.
I told you, man, it's all about, it's like a little bird, just drops down some breadcrumbs and she'll be right there.
Hey, that's cute for a sponsor right there.
Yeah. So thank you very much to you both, and I am brilliant, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate what you do. Glad that our paths have crossed, even though it's virtually, which is also, again, really different. So thank you so much for that, and I look forward to getting to know you better, and continuing to stay in touch with your work. So folks, I really appreciate you guys tuning in again to another episode for You and 5-0. As always, be safe, be well, and peace.